Okay, let's try this for the 795th time. My name is Militant Ginger. It is January the 1st, 2020. Last year, I made a video, it was before December 31st actually, because I was off to Chicago, but it was basically a wrap-up of 2018, and I found that really valuable, so I thought I would do one for this year, wrapping up 2019. And I spilled a lot of champagne here. Whew. What can I say about 2019? Well, my end of year video in 2018, I said that just like TV shows have a season arc, I think the big bad for 2019 was me facing myself. There were aspects of myself that were holding me back, that I needed to address and overcome. And I can honestly say that it only happened towards the very end of the year, but I think I made a huge amount of headway. One of the reasons was I read a book called No More Mr. Nice Guy by Dr. Donald Glover. I basically addressed the fact that a lot of us men have now been raised in a kind of female-dominated environment, because our father's at work, so we get raised by our mothers. 80% of teachers are female. We've got a very powerful feminist movement at the moment, which is kind of like women can do anything that men can do, and addressing certain things about toxic aspects of masculinity. And I will say, at the risk of being controversial, that there is you kind of feel like there's a narrative that being a guy is bad, and you should almost sort of pull back on certain masculine instincts. And the book that I read was basically about, you're born a guy, and there's nothing wrong with being a man and enjoying manly things and manly company and stuff, just as long as you're a good person and an ethical person and a person with integrity. And it made me examine an awful lot of my life and my behaviour, and then made me realise that I've always been a people pleaser. I've always wanted to be liked, and I've always wanted to make people happy, and I've bent over backwards, and often I have prioritised other people's needs rather than my own. And when you've got kids and stuff, that's important, because you prioritise your kids' needs over your own needs. But it wasn't just kids; it was also my wife and my co-workers and my friends and stuff like that. And it made me realise, reading this book, that I need to take a step back and I need to prioritise my own needs first, because if you can't fill from an empty cup, and if I'm not getting my own needs met, I can't meet the needs of anybody else in a sustainable way. And so I really took a leaf out of that book, and I really started focusing on myself and what I wanted to do and what I wanted to accomplish. And it was really weird, because that was when things started falling into place throughout my life. I think the most interesting thing is, if you say esoterically on paper, oh, I'm going to focus on myself and I'm going to make sure my own needs are met first, it sounds very, very selfish. But I found almost every single person I interacted with this new mindset respected it and respected me more. And I was a lot happier, because I was getting the stuff I needed to do done. And it really did feel like I confronted the version of myself that I had lived 40 years as, and realised that it was time for them to go away. And it's funny, I'm writing a book at the moment, and I literally have a character in it based on all the bad behaviour that I want to get rid of, and I kill him. And it felt good. It felt good. And I'm working through a lot of stuff actually with this new book. So yeah, in terms of that, last year I made this video and I said I'm going to go up against myself, and I think I did. I think I won. And I think the promise of 2020 is the fact that I can live this new version of my life in which I'm living on my own terms. And I think that's good. What is the theme for 2020? Well, two themes. The first is, I realised in 2019 I had, with my writing career, a lot of ups and downs and stuff like that. I need to focus on writing. Seriously focus on writing. Last year I had a very good run of 3 or 4 months in which I sat down and I logged how many words I wrote every single day. And when I was writing every single day, my life was great. And when I wasn't writing every single day, my life was shit. And so 2020, I'm going to make a promise that I'm going to write every single day. I haven't done it yet, but I will do today. And I'm going to try and write 5,000 words a day. And if I do that, then there is nothing stopping me from being wildly successful beyond any imagination that I ever had before. Because the thing is, I'm not embarking on new territory now. I've already done it. Like, I have written a successful bestseller, and then I've repeated that formula, and I've repeated that formula, and then things might have gone pear-shaped, but as soon as I went back to that process of writing every day, and writing a specific book every day, things got better. So I realised that's what I need to do. I need to write every single day. And if I do that, the life I want will be delivered to me. Because, as Oscar Wilde said, we define ourselves not by nouns, but by verbs. I'm a writer because I write. And that's what I need to do. That's the me I was up against. Me I was up against was the old version of me. He was the people pleaser and the hustler. And he wants to be a writer so badly. But then when he got up in the morning, he was like, I'll do this to make some extra money so we can pay these bills, or I'll do this, or I'll focus on the kids, or I'll focus on my wife. And I never focused on what was important, which is the writing. And maybe it sounds selfish, but I need to be selfish. I need to be selfish, and every single day I need to focus my time on writing. And then I can do everything else. So that is my pledge for 2020. I'm going to be a writer. And to be a writer, because you define yourself by verbs, not nouns, I need to write. So every single day I'm going to write. The second thing I'm going to focus on in 2020 is I'm going to focus on my wife. I don't think anybody is easy to be married to. I think relationships are difficult. I think your 40s especially are a really, really tricky time. And again, in that book that I think I mentioned, that No More Mr. Nice Guy, I mentioned that a lot of the times there are guys who think they're nice, who believe that their wives are the ones who hold them back. And they're like, oh, everything would be fine if only my wife did that, or only my... And it makes you think very hard about everything that you complain about or resent in your spouse or partner. And really, it all comes back to you. Like, people almost, people project, people give you what you give them. And I realise now that this whole thing of putting my own needs first and putting my own priorities, that's what I've needed to do all along. I've always kind of like bent over backwards to please my wife. And the problem is, by doing that, I've kind of like lost who I am and my purpose and what it is, and even lost the ability to provide what it is that my wife needs, because I'm not focusing on what it is I need to focus on. I think that's a problem. I think you can lose yourself in another person. And the person actually ends up liking you a lot more if you don't. If you focus on your own needs and you focus on your own goals, you focus on achieving those, then people respect you for that. It's very weird because it involves kind of stripping away every piece of identity about who I am. It's like, I'm the nice guy, I make people happy, I provide value in that, and it's like, you know what? No, that's not who you are. It's not who you want to be. So that's a very, very tough lesson to learn. And I think this year I'm really going to focus on trying to, just trying to make it work with my marriage in a different way. So we'll see how that goes. So you heard it here first, folks. My priorities for 2020 are writing every day and focusing on my relationship. But it's the furthest I've got in this video today. I've been interrupted so many times. Last year I started the year with this little composition book that says $20,000 a month by May 2019, the plan. The other day, Tina got this book and she was like, oh, you filled up this book, we should throw it out. If there's ever a moment where you're like, you really don't get me, dude. It's like, I'm a writer, I have filled this book with writings and affirmations, and it's like, no, this is part of me, part of my soul that's in this book, and you're thinking of throwing it out. Anyway, The thing that I think was really interesting is last year I started this book and I said my goal was to earn $20,000 in book sales in March 2019, which means I get paid in May 2019. And I had a plan. And the plan was to write every day and publish every day. Here we go, 5 a.m. Write, never anything but write. And when I stuck to the plan, everything worked great. And when I didn't stick to the plan, everything went tits up. It's 2020, you're going to stick to the plan. I think that's the amazing thing. Being a writer isn't an esoteric idea, it isn't a dream. I've done it. I've written best-selling books. I've made more in a month from book royalties than I have doing anything else. The thing I enjoy most, is the thing I'm best at. And so in 2020 I need to stick to the plan that I had in 2019. Because if I stick to it, it will work. So, what I've got here, I've got a brand new book. Brand new composition book. It is now January 1st, 2020. So you get paid 60 days after month's end. So if I had a stonking January, 60 days after January, the end of February and March, end of March, I would receive the income from that. So I'm going to give myself 2 months. 2 months of writing and publishing. The end of April, April 30th, no, April 29th, because that's when Amazon pays out, 2020, I'm going to be making $20,000 a month from book royalties alone. And I know how to do that. So I'm going to write it right here. 20,000 per month by April 29, 2020. The plan. Now remember, the difference between dreams and plans are writing shit down. The plan. What is the plan? Here is the plan. The plan. Step 1. Write every damn day. We're definitely going to have a check-in on the 29th, but I think this could work. This could be the year that it all comes together. And this is the book that it's all going to come together in. Okay, that was great. What else can I say about 2019? It was probably I probably had the lowest lows of my life this year, but I also feel like I'm a better person coming out of it. And I'm kind of excited. So I'm really going to stick to that. There have been some great memories. I started off this year fantastically. I went to Chicago with my buddy Brandon. I'd never been before. We had a fantastic time. I actually started off January 1st having an argument about chatting up a beautiful Nigerian girl in Chicago. It was a very, very rough year. But a very good year. So came back from that. Then it was just a case of like hustling, trying to pay bills, get stuff done. This is a very boring video of me just standing there thinking. I'm probably going to wrap it up quite quickly. And it's not very interesting for anyone else watching, and I don't think anyone else will. This is very useful for me to just think about and process. The other thing that I think was really important for me in 2019 was, I read this book, No One Mr. Nice Guy, that was great. The other thing that I really got into was mindfulness. And it's funny, for years I've been saying, oh, I'm going to take up meditation. I'm going to take up meditation. And I never did. Because I never really quite got the point of it. And then I started to try it. I didn't start to try it by sitting in a lotus position and like doing the official thing. I just started doing this thing where you become more mindful. And that basically means that you stop running off in your head on wild tangents and you actually just take a moment to take a deep breath and you just experience where you are in the moment. And I've only been doing that probably the last month or so, but it has made such a massive difference to my levels of anxiety and depression and stuff like that, because you're depressed, you're living in the past. Because you're depressed about all the stuff that's gone on in the past that you can't change. And if you're anxious, you're living in the future. Because you're anxious about doing all this stuff that you need to do. Whereas if you're mindful, if you just exist in the moment, then you find a certain level of peace. Because you're not worried about you're not trying to obsess about the past, you're not thinking about the future. Your brain runs away with you a lot. And so the whole thing of meditation, the whole thing of mindfulness, you just take a deep breath, you stop that voice in your head from questioning everything, from running off in tangents, from getting you all hyped up. And I found that really, really helpful. Anyway, my wife's going back home. Time for me to finish. 2020 is going to be an unbelievable year. And I really will be sitting somewhere else when we wrap up 2020 and we do the video for the next year. But thank you very much for being part of my life, and I'll see you soon.